Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that when we examine the roadmap of the Star Wars franchise, there's a lot of different avenues that Disney is actually taking. We have, of course, the movie route, the Star Wars show route, as well as the books, the novels, and the comics. That's all going to work in conjunction with each other to really expand this ever-evolving timeline that's going to have many avenues to take. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that, yes, we have a lot of things happening at once between John, George, and Dave to really kind of fulfill the Star Wars franchise and to really make the Star Wars fan base very much satisfied, with The Mandalorian Season 3 now officially out on Disney Plus with Chapter 17, things are really coming off to a great start. A lot of fans loved the first episode. There's a couple of people out there that felt it was a little boring and very, melodramatic. But I think that it was a very well-paced, very fun ride of 35 plus minutes. I thought it was great. So, beyond all of this, alright, are everything related to Bob Iger's recent decisions and choices that he made for the upcoming Star Wars films. Now, one of which is a full-on trilogy that Bob Iger recently canceled, finalized it off the roadmap, took it off there, opened up some more slots, and this has a lot to do with Disney Plus, by the way. This is the trilogy that Kathleen Kennedy was driving, and was actually pulling the strings behind closed doors, after, of course, a lot of things happened with Rian Johnson's trilogy. We'll talk about that in a second. So there's a connection there. Now, with that being, of course, put out there, we know that Bob Iger is cleaning up house over at Lucasfilm. He's allowing John and Dave to replace, certain creatives as need be, and to really kind of just give that company a better image, a better working atmosphere, and stuff around those lines. Now, beyond that, with many new Star Wars TV shows in the works by both John and Dave, they are preparing to make big announcements at this year's Celebration event. Further, it's described, however, that Disney CEO Bob Iger recently canceled a major plan that was being created by Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy. Further, it's described that just recently Bob Iger decided to cancel a full-on trilogy that was in the works by Kennedy. That has now been finalized to be cancelled altogether by Bob Iger, and he is removing them from the slate of upcoming Star Wars films. The trilogy was set to be separate from the High Republic trilogy, and was meant to be the replacement of Rian Johnson's trilogy when it was cancelled. So, to be very clear here, this is separate from that cancelled HR trilogy, the High Republic one, and this one was meant to be a replacement of Rian Johnson's trilogy after that fell apart, after Kathleen Kennedy kept that a secret for so very long, and she only recently, by the way, came forward and confirmed that it's been on the back burner now. So this one in particular was basically going to be modeled off the David Benioff and D.B. Weiss trilogy that got canceled too. Basically, this one that she was developing was going to be a revived version of that trilogy that did not work out. We'll tap into the specifics in a second. Now, however, this trilogy was intended to release on Disney Plus instead of theaters, and was going to consist of the origin of the Jedi and the Jedi Order, and showcasing how the Jedi came into existence. This was loosely based off of David Benioff and D.B. Weiss's trilogy, and was in the middle of getting revived by Kennedy to be a series of films to release on Disney Plus. So, once again, the fact that they wanted to release movies on Disney Plus was a battle between Kathleen Kennedy and the Disney board members. The board members did not want this to happen. They believe that Star Wars material, at least for Disney Plus, should remain as shows and shows only, and keep the movies for theaters. And they were having a battle with that over, between themselves and Kathleen Kennedy, and this was an ongoing thing for about 6 months on and off. We talked about this very briefly like a couple months ago. The thing about this trilogy in particular, though, is that it was going to feature ancient times, things that we have never seen before in Legends or even in the current canon material. Kathleen Kennedy was really trying hard to really kind of make original content. The problem that I see here is that Kathleen Kennedy was literally taking David Benioff's and D.B. Weiss's material and using that for her trilogy. claiming it as her own creation, basically. So you guys may recall the creators of Game of Thrones. Originally, they were hired by Lucasfilm years back, by the way. We're talking like 2019, give or take, maybe 2020. And they were supposed to have a 2022 Star Wars movie to be the first of the trilogy. That got canceled. So basically, this trilogy that too was canceled was based off of that one. Kathleen Kennedy taking the credit for all of the story and all of the, origin of the Jedi and the Jedi Order and stuff like that. Now, on top of this, too, after Kennedy, of course, and her ongoing problems with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, Iger has now decided to pull those movies off the roadmap of Star Wars. These films were described to be very politically correct to a heightened level that actually scared off the Disney board members, and they were actively ready to pull these films that were meant to be small-scale movies, however medium-budget projects. Now, additionally, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni will be giving extra slots available for their Old Republic films that they have been assigned to as co-writers, as Disney seeks a main writer to take care of those stories. So, again, let's elaborate real quick, is that what happened essentially is that Iger was very unimpressed and very much frightened over how politically correct, even Iger was afraid of this, which tells you a lot of things. Very afraid over how politically correct these movies were going to be on Disney Plus. And yeah, on paper it sounds interesting. Let's be real. The Jedi Order, the origin of the Jedi, ancient times. If you guys have seen the Force Awakens visual dictionary, there was even an idea by JJ to explore the first lightsaber, so we could have seen stuff like that. But the problem that I have with this is that Kathleen Kennedy took David and DB's idea, the creators of Game of Thrones and their Star Wars trilogy, and took the credit and was attempting to use it for her own material by hiring a new writer to actually take control of the actual trilogy, basically. That's the problem that I have with it. I don't necessarily have a problem with the general idea of this trilogy. I mean, I think it may have worked, but given that it was Kathleen Kennedy controlled, it was just not going to work. It was not going to happen, you know. Political correctness in Star Wars does not seem to match correctly. And when you move forward with that, you know, you can already see, you know, what they have been doing lately with, you know, John and Dave. Because they want John and Dave to clean things up, to make sure that they can revive Star Wars properly. And so far, Mando Season 3, I think, is at a good start. Season, 3, Episode 1 was pretty impressive. So I'm glad that Iger took control. I'm glad that he took action and really owned his mistakes of letting Kathleen Kennedy do this in the beginning and decided to pull the trigger and just cancel this altogether as soon as possible, and he did. Now, that leaves open slots for John and Dave for the Old Republic trilogy that they are currently working on. That's in the early development phase. We're going to get an announcement about that by the end of this year, so keep your eyes open for that. It's most likely going to be during that November earnings call, so right around that time frame. Overall, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you guys have to say about all of this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.